Today, on Independent Wrestling Profiles, we're talking with veteran referee Brad Myers. What's like your earliest memory of discovering professional wrestling?
Honestly, I think the earliest memory I have is taking a Hulk Hogan leg drop from my brother at probably like 5 years old. It sounds crazy, but I mean, my brothers were 10 and 15 years older than me. So they were, the super Hulk Hogan fans, and I was their kid brother that they could just beat up and take advantage of when I didn't know what was happening. And then, as I got into it, we kind of wrestled more. And then I remember one time, they gave me a 3D onto my dad's bed and it broke. And then that was probably the last time we ever wrestled at the house.
So outside of being a target dummy, was there a portion of it where they kind of took you under the wing and outside of giving you moves also said, hey, here's the show or here's our action figures? Like, did they also serve as a bit of a catalyst getting you into it yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember playing with the toys when I was a kid. We had the LJN guys who had like no points of articulation, and now seeing what the kids have now, it's like, oh, you guys don't realize how spoiled you are. But yeah, we watched all the wrestling when I was a kid. I don't remember really watching it as a kid, probably because I was too busy getting beat up. But when I started really liking it was probably around the Attitude Era. I was a young kid, I was born in 1990. So right in the peak of when the Attitude Era was coming up, I was like, this is real and this is awesome. And Stone Cold's going to come out on a Zamboni and beat the hell out of somebody. So, I mean, those are my earliest memories of wrestling. So, I mean, it's just been around as long as I can remember. So
I can't imagine that taking a leg drop is something that gets somebody invested in it. Do
no,
you remember,
God, no.
even if like a little bit fleeting, but do you remember if there was performers or matches or certain elements of it that really drew your attention and made you want to tune in every week?
I had to be Stone Cold. He was just the best. Once I finally started watching it for myself and not just like as a kid playing with toys while my brothers watched it. I mean, it was always on in the background, so it was something that I was probably paying attention to in my subconscious. But I mean, once I started watching for myself, definitely Stone Cold was my guy. I was definitely Team Stone Cold instead of Team The Rock. But I mean, everybody in the Attitude Era was awesome. Kane was cool. The Undertaker was awesome. Who else was there? X-Pac. I was an X-Pac kid for some reason, which is weird, but he's the best. So yeah, I mean, all the characters in the Attitude Era. And I mean, I get like when I'm 10 years old, probably not the right time to be watching the Attitude Era, but it sucked me in and I went on the ride with it. I think my mom was a big fan too. She used to watch it with me. I don't know if she was doing that because she was a good mom or if she liked it as well. But I mean, I think the first show I remember going to was a house show at, it was either Maple Leaf Gardens or maybe the Sky Dome, but it was a 4-way cage match in the main event with Kane, The Undertaker, The Rock, and Stone Cold, which is insane. So,
do you remember kind of how much that live event, that first experience, I mean, that's a heck of a main event, helped really fuel that fire of fandom in you? Because as anybody will tell you, a live event is a very different feel from watching it on your television.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely an eye-opening, like, this is even cooler in person. Like, you feel like you're a part of the show when you're there. And I remember being probably, it must have been 10 or 11 years old when this is happening, maybe even younger, maybe even 8 or 9. And just being like, wow, like, look at all these people here to watch the same thing I want to watch. And then they brought the cage out and it was like, whoa, like, what's happening? So, I mean, it was definitely an eye-opening experience when I was a kid, and getting to be involved in it now is kind of, it's definitely a dream come true, and it's something that I never thought was even possible as a child.
You say it was something you couldn't have even imagined as a child. When was that spark kind of lit where you were thinking, like, I want to be a part of this? I don't know how, I don't know when, but I want this to be in my future.
Probably when I first found out about independent wrestling. So, I mean, obviously, it must have been like 2005, 2006. Ring of Honor was really taking off, and you would hear about it on like the message boards. And I used to listen to live audio wrestling all the time, and they would talk about CM Punk and Samoa Joe having these incredible matches. And my brain was just like, who are these guys, and where can I see this? So I started looking it up, and then I figured out because my mom was driving home one day and she was like, there was a street sign that said there was live wrestling in Mississauga. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's not a thing. And then she drove past again and wrote down the website, and it was UWA Hardcore, which was, I don't know if you're familiar with them. They were probably the most insane company that Ontario Wrestling's ever had.
No.
The first show I went to, I was probably 16, 15 for the independent scene, and the main event was Ultimo Dragon against Sanjay Dutt.
Wow.
And I was hooked. I don't think I missed a single UWA show until they folded. So, I mean, it was, as soon as I was there, I was like, okay, this is possible. These guys are from around here. What's my next step, and how do I figure that out? And it was a lot of like, okay, like wrestling school is expensive, and like I have scoliosis, so like bumping obviously was out of the cards for me. So it's like, like what can I do? And so I started doing commentary. Well, actually, rewind a little more. I started by doing graphic design. I did graphic design for a couple of the wrestlers, and then I started doing graphic design for Smash Wrestling. And then eventually they were looking for a commentator, and I was like, hey, that's something I've always wanted to try my hand at. And they graciously took me in for a tryout match. I had great chemistry with Scott, who is, I think he's still their lead guy there. And from there, for I think 5 to 10 years, or probably not 10, probably like 5 to 8 years, it was him and I on the call for basically every Smash show.
I did want to ask because, commentary is a bit of a unique way to get into the industry. And I'm sure there's some people that are curious about it too, that can't perform but want to be involved in some measure. Obviously, you got lucky with a bit of a connection, but what sort of preparation did you have to do in order to start doing commentary? Was it just, hey, these are the types of things I heard when I was watching? Or did you have to, pick Scott's brain? Like, what was kind of the route for becoming a commentary fresh from the start?
So for me, I was pretty lucky. Scott went to school for broadcast journalism. So he kind of trained me into like, this is his role and this is going to be my role. And as soon as like he kind of coached me up on like, okay, you're going to be the color commentary guy. So I'm going to do most of the talking, and you're going to come in and explain when I need a breath, what is happening in the match, why it's happening, what the guy's doing, why he's doing it, put the heels over, put the baby faces over, try and make a joke here and there that I can lob back to Scott to make fun of me. Right. So, and I think understanding that role of like, yeah, I'm a smart guy, but I have to sometimes lean into playing the idiot was something that was kind of a mind. Like, how do I make sure Scott doesn't actually hate me when he's calling me stupid on commentary, right? So that was something that I had to like juggle and struggle with for a little bit. But yeah, I was lucky that Scott was able to just coach me into what he wanted in a play-by-play partner. And I think that's why we had such good chemistry. I mean, I had known Scott beforehand, so it was kind of like just sliding right in there.
So I like to focus on firsts here, and I feel like you're going to have a few of them in different milestones. But can you talk to me about your first show commentary? How did it feel? How did it go? Do you have any sort of anecdotes or just anything that you can remember about that first night?
So the first time Scott and I did it was actually in a basement and watching an old match. So they had all the footage from when they were in Nunavut, and they wanted to release the DVDs because there was a lot of good talent on it. I think Lance Storm and Tyson Dukes had like a 2 out of 3 falls match or something like that. And that was the main event. So we just kind of started doing like post-production commentary, and then we kind of transitioned into live once we got all the technology for it. And the first live show we did, I was a nervous wreck. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves me correctly, the first live commentary show we did was the show with Chris Hero and AJ Styles as the main event.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so going into that, it was like, okay, this is a lot of pressure. And then, just following Scott's lead. I think at that time, I might have been doing play-by-play and Scott might have been doing color. It was before we really found our groove. But it was definitely nerve-wracking. And, you do your research and you're looking up all these stats of these guys and have they wrestled each other before? And if they have, who's won? And, Chris Hero was freshly out of WWE. And AJ Styles was freshly out of TNA, and it was like this match hasn't happened in 10 years. So it was like trying to tell that story as well as trying to put over like, hey, this is where you can see good wrestling in Canada. So it's a lot. And then later on, eventually we started to get, we had headsets so we could get a producer to talking to us as we were talking. And that's a whole different trip where you're trying to talk something and say something while someone's telling you something else in your ears. But no, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, definitely nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I have to imagine. I know because you're doing something for the first time, and while you are educated and knowledgeable and things like that, it's so easy to flub and say somebody's name wrong and
Yep.
worry about like how am I going to come off and how is it going to go. Do you remember any of the feedback you were getting in those early days, or any advice that you were getting that really helped you through it?
A lot of it was just pay more attention to like the small details, right? So in commentary, it's difficult because you want to tell the overarching story that's happening, but a lot of that is told through the little stuff that happens. So if a heel's working on, like, say they're punching him in the face, and eventually the finish is going to be some sort of brain buster or something. We never used to want to know the finishes for a while, and I feel like that was kind of a detriment to us. I feel like once we realized, like, okay, this is the story of the match, this is where it's going, this is where it's leading storyline wise, we were able to tell that story a lot better. Even if we didn't know the exact finish of the match, like if we knew what the kind of like the overarching story that was going to be told was, we could play into it. You know, if we knew that the babyface was going to dominate most of the match, but the heel was going to win, then that's where you put the babyface over a little bit more. Because they're not going to get their rub at the end, right? So if you can build them up and build them up and build them up, when the heel wins, it makes everybody look good.
Awesome. So take me through the next steps in the journey, because you've done some great commentary work, but what you're probably most well known for is your job as a referee. Can
Yes.
you take me through the next steps on that journey? Where do you go from doing commentary?
So it's a weird story. Smash was doing a sister promotion called Infinity at the time, and it was kind of a smaller budget, smaller show. It was basically just content for Smash on Demand, and the way that we were looking at it was we're going to have the staff try other things and see if they like it, and then just kind of like build bench strength among the team. And I was like, hey, I'd love to try refereeing. And so I had probably a 45-minute crash course one day with Jimmy Corderas and Dustin Perry. And I was told, we're going to get to the show. You're going to ref one match, and we'll see how you like it, see how you do, and we'll give you feedback. And long story short, that no other referees showed up, and I ref the whole show. And loved it, kind of caught the bug. Leaned on a lot of good people who I was able to build relationships with to kind of coach me into becoming the referee I am now. Watched a lot of different referees, not just in wrestling, but other sports as well, to kind of get the demeanor right. And yeah, I guess the rest is history. I just started, guys like Matt McCausland was a huge help for me in, anytime I have a match that I'm not sure if I was good, I'll send it to him and he'll say, no, you were great, or no, you can do this better, you can do that better. And, guys like Harry D, guys like Dustin, a lot of good people who have helped me along the way.
So talk to me about your feelings being in the ring, because doing commentary, you're absolutely a big part of the show. But during the live event, the audience is not really paying attention to you. They're watching the match, they're watching the referees, they might be hearing it if they're watching from home. How did it feel to actually be at the center of attention? And yes, a referee is doing their best if they're not noticed in a match,
Yeah.
but you are still very much there. How did that feel, having that kind of different feeling going through the event?
It was terrifying. I had never, obviously the crash course, but until you're in there real time, you don't know what you're looking for, There were times where they'd go to the ropes and I'd just be standing there like, oh yeah, I got to go count. And then like 2 seconds later, I'd come in and be like, yeah, guys, get off the ropes. And now it all just comes second nature because it's all muscle memory for me. But that first time, I remember Holden Albright took a power bomb and wasn't the finish, kicked out. And in the back, I was like, man, that power bomb looked like it killed you. And he goes, why didn't you check on me? And I was like, didn't know I was supposed to. And now it's like whenever I see a referee not check on someone after a dirty looking bump or anything like that, it's like, what are we doing? Check on him, make sure he's okay.
So there's a lot to remember. And yes, that's something that you should do. But outside of should, we are fans. You are a fan. That's how you started. Has there
Absolutely.
ever been a moment where you're in a match and you've watched a spot or an exchange between some performers that was just so fantastic that you had to almost catch yourself and be like, oh, wait, no, I can't just watch this. I have a job to do.
There's been a couple, and I mean, you can ask anybody that I referee on a lot. I talk a lot in the ring. So I think it was, I don't remember who he was wrestling, but Gringo Loco does this weird, like he stands frontwards on the top rope and then jumps, spins, lands, and does a like a split-legged moonsault. And the first time I saw him do it, I was in the ring. I went, "Wow, that was cool!" And he looked up at me and said, "You like that, eh?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was. I've never seen that before." And so, like, I always tell people, like, I'll encourage you in the ring. So a lot of the times, I'm talking to the guys, saying like, "Yeah, you guys are killing it. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Let's go." Giving them time cues. So there's been a lot of spots where it's like, "Wow, that was really cool," and then I'm able to just slide in and pretend I'm working and just kind of tell them how awesome it was. So it's you have to not wear it on your face and like have that whole moment, but you can still tell them and you can like appreciate it in the moment. It's definitely the best seat in the house.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've dabbled in commentary, you've done a lot of refereeing. Is there any other jobs that you've had with a wrestling promotion that you'd like to tell us about or that you'd like to do in the future?
I don't think so. I think I ring announced one show and I didn't really love that. I think it was more like, I don't really like the sound of my voice, so let's not do this, which is crazy because I did commentary on the same show. But no, I think mainly commentary and refereeing is where I've hit my strides the most.
So let's talk about some highlights that you've had during your career. What are some of the most amazing moments that you've been able to be a part of or been a witness to, just being in the ring or backstage with like a roster, maybe even just like a surreal moment of realization that, hey, I am actually a part of this industry now?
There's been a lot. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I've worked with that I used to watch on TV and been like, man, that guy's awesome. And then you meet him in person, you're like, this guy is awesome. Uh, there's been a lot of guys who I've worked with who, we were on the indies together and now they're signed and working either AEW or WWE, which is awesome to see. It's still mind blowing when I go to the store and I see toys of my friends. It's very strange. I like to collect all the action figures of people I've worked with, and it's getting a little ridiculous. Every time I come home with one, my wife gets a little upset with me, or maybe she doesn't, but I'm going to pretend she does for the sake of this interview. But eventually we want to finish the basement. I'm going to have a whole wall up on them. I've been lucky enough to get a couple of them signed, which is cool. So, I mean, when I was, God, probably around the same time I started to go to independent shows, I was a big Zack Ryder guy. And a couple, maybe last year, the year before, I got to work with them. And I got them to sign my figure, which I had for ever. And that was a really cool moment of like, man, I've done a lot of cool stuff in this business. Getting to work with guys like Minoru Suzuki was one of those like, pinch me, is this real life type of moments. I've had a lot of those, which is kind of crazy to look back on. But if I had to pick one highlight, it was probably when SummerSlam was in Toronto. We did a whole run of shows with a bunch of different companies from around the world. And I got to referee Jordan Devlin against Travis Banks for Progress. And they were both under WWE contract at the time. And it was like, I didn't feel out of place. And it was kind of a moment of like, okay, maybe I am good at this, because I have a lot of imposter syndrome sometimes where it's like, am I really good at this? Or are people just telling me they like to work with me because I'm a nice guy? And in those moments where it's two guys who I've never worked with before and they're both signed and we get to the back and I ask for advice and they tell me, no, man, you were absolutely great. Keep doing what you're doing, is like, holy crap. Like, what's going on? Like, why you tell me what I did wrong, please give me one thing I can work on. And they had nothing. And it was like, okay, so maybe I am okay at this.
Yeah, yeah. Got to put the imposter syndrome behind a bit.
Yeah.
I do need to ask. You had mentioned figures quite a bit, and I can't help but notice there's a particular one behind you on the shelf there.
Yes.
Is
This
there?
one.
Would you be able to tell me a little bit about what I'm looking at there, or what I've been looking at?
So we've got a fan in Ontario named Sean, and he likes to make figures of the guys. And this is my custom Brad Myers action figure, which is pretty much I almost retired the day I got it.
I have to say that's got to be a good feeling because, yes, it's not an official figure or anything like that, but somebody took the time, took the notice to make that for you.
Yeah, it was one of those
There's,
things where you see all the wrestlers get them, and you're like, yeah, no one's ever going to make one for a ref. And then he sends us a message, me and Ken, on the same day, and goes, "Hey, I have something for you guys." And we were like, "Oh, this is it." So it was pretty surreal to have somebody make that for me. Not something I ever expected when I started in this business, and definitely something that I will cherish for a long time.
that's wonderful, wonderful. So I do need to ask you though, what do you kind of want to see from your career next? Is there any sort of direction you want to go? Any sort of companies you want to hit? Any sort of traveling you want to get out of the business? Like, what's on the wrestling bucket list that you would like to check off next?
Yeah, I mean, I try and make it like a goal list every year of things I want to do. This year it was Mania Week was a big one for me, and I was lucky enough to have 3 shows while I was in Vegas this year, which was still mind blowing that it happened, which was awesome. 2 companies out of BC booked me, and then Demand Lucha as well was down there, so I was able to work for my guys there, which was super cool to be in a different country and nowhere close to where we're from, and have a whole bunch of people show up to watch Demand Lucha. Is like, this is awesome. This is really cool. As far as goals, I mean, one of my other big ones was to teach a class, and I've been blessed with the opportunity to do that starting 2-3 weeks from now at New Wave. So I'm very excited about that. That's my way of giving back to the business that's been so good to me. I'd love to travel more. One of the goals I have is to do a show in Nashville. I love the city of Nashville. I've got a buddy who lives down there who's a huge wrestling fan, and I keep trying to get him to get me booked down there. I said, I'll drive. It's fine. It's 12 hours. It's not that big of a deal. So I think that's a big one. I'd love to see the rest of Canada as well. It's just hard as a referee to justify flying out or getting flown out or driving across the country for a show. But I mean, I would do it. It's something that I want to do, and it's on my goals for sure. Obviously, anytime we can go into the States is a lot of fun. I've got a show coming up that's being put on by Don Julio, which is pretty cool. So it's like a whole tequila sponsored event. We've done a couple of them with them, and now I think this is the biggest one that we're doing. They've got a whole character as a luchador who wrestles as Don Julio, which is super cool and super campy, but the sponsors love it, and the sponsors love it. That's all that matters. So I think more into the States would be ideal for me. It's just a matter of getting a car to go down and a carpool full of guys who are booked and making it worth our while.
So this might be a little bit of a tougher question because there is so many possibilities. But do you have like some dream competitors that you'd like to referee matches for one day?
Man, I think I've hit a lot of the ones that I would have told you when I first started. Obviously, there's people who I can no longer have that opportunity for because they've either retired or passed away. But as far as people who are hot on the indies right now, or even, I guess, in the Fed, if we want to go that far, guys like Cody Rhodes, I think would be super fun to work with. I did commentary on one of his matches when we had him at Smash. And then I wasn't at Alpha One when he was there. Otherwise, I feel like that would have been one crossed off the bucket list. Yeah, I'm trying to think, and my brain's just not really giving me a lot of people because I've worked with so many. And that's not to brag; it's a humble brag. But yeah, a lot of the people who I was a huge fan of when I was younger, I've had the privilege of working with, and I mean, obviously Steve. I'll throw Steve Austin in there. Come back for one more match in somewhere in Ontario and let me rough it.
Well, I kind of set you up for it. I did say it's a little bit of a difficult one because I know you have done so much already. Now, speaking of doing things, sometimes referees get involved in matches. And we've seen occasions where, a performer gets a little over the line and has to be given their comeuppance. Have you had any surreal moments where you've delivered a wrestling move to a performer during a match?
Quite a few times, my friend. Most of the time, it's a stunner. It's probably, probably because I was raised by Steve via television. So I like to throw a stunner in there every once in a while. We did a match in Barrie. It's the most ridiculous concept for a match, and for some reason it works. The promoter there is a big soccer fan, and we do this thing in partnership with their local soccer team called the Wild Rovers match. So it's usually a 4-on-4, 3-on-3 tag, and we somehow incorporate soccer rules into it. And I think it was either the last one or the one before. I think I gave everybody in the match a stunner. My tailbone was sore the next day, but it was worth it. And then at Northern Crown, they somehow talked me into doing a dive to the floor. This spot was, they were all doing dives, and I was getting mad that they weren't staying in the ring. And Channing Thomas got on the top rope and said he was going to dive. And I yelled at him and said, "No, you're not." And I grabbed him and gave him a flare bump. And then the crowd erupted, and I said, "I'm going to dive." So I jumped on the top rope and dove to the floor, and I got a good photo of it, and that's really all that matters to me.
So speaking of crowd reactions, it's a big part of the industry, especially when it comes to independence, is that interaction, that intimacy with fans. And we know there is a little bit of a tendency for refs to get jeered more than cheered. It's not very often that they want to show their appreciation for a referee. What are some of the weirdest interactions that you've had from fans when you were refereeing?
Oh man, I think just a lot of I don't really get a lot of weird ones. That or I'm not listening. I always try and tell people who ask me for advice, like if you're a referee, don't listen. There's so many things you need to remember and focus on. The last thing you want to do is have bunny ears and start arguing with the crowd. So I don't really listen to a lot of them, but there have been some good ones. None that really popped in my head right now, but there's been a couple of them that have made me laugh out loud. There's one, it wasn't directed at me, but at one point, Holden Albright took his shoe off and started hitting someone with it. And someone in the crowd yelled, "Oh man, now he's going to have athlete's foot all over his face." And I laughed out loud at it for no reason. And then I was like, damn it, I shouldn't have laughed. But it was just one of those moments where it was too funny. And yeah, so I try not to listen, especially to the boos, because obviously people are going to jeer no matter what, count faster, be better. But it's like, if I count faster, then this match ends and you're not going to see the really cool stuff they have planned.
So I do like to step away from the ring just a little bit. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about any hobbies, pastimes? Like who is Brad Myers outside of the wrestling world?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I'm a huge Ticats fan. Got season tickets for those guys. Really like F1 racing. Got super into that during the pandemic when there was no other sports on TV. Diehard Leafs fan, diehard Jays fan. A lot of sports. Big food guy. I like a lot of food. Got a great wife who's super supportive in all these weird journeys I tell her I'm about to go take, and supports me driving 6 hours for 30 minutes of work some days. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell. But yeah.
It's amazing to have that familial support because it is a lot of travel. It's a lot of time away from home, and having that support probably does help a lot. So just a couple final questions before we wrap up. One thing that I like to ask everybody, and I think for you especially, because you're not specifically a performer, but you've had your hand in the industry a lot, what are some pieces of advice that if you could go back and give yourself at a younger age when you were just kind of starting out, that maybe could help somebody else right now who's thinking of the same route? What would you want to hear most?
I would say probably always ask for advice, and ask people who you trust, and ask people who you're just meeting. You never know who could be watching or who could be in the locker room. Always ask advice, ask for feedback. And if there's someone there who you know is good, or has a name, ask them to watch. I think that's something that I wish I knew younger, is that, a guy like Gabriel Fuerza, if you ask him to watch, he will watch and he will give you feedback. And I think that's something that not a lot of people realize is that the way we grow in this business is by getting feedback. I mean, you can go out there and wrestle the same match 100 times. And if you do one little thing different every time and try something else out, you might grow a little bit. And I think asking your peers, asking fans for feedback, a lot of fans will say, "Oh, it was a great match," and I might not think it was my best performance, but really asking people and ask promoters. Definitely ask promoters. They're the guys who are paying your bills and who are bringing you in. Always ask for feedback. That's the one thing I can say. And don't defend when they critique. A lot of people will say, yeah, but this and that. Take it. If it's bad feedback, wear it on the chin and learn from it. I think that's what I would tell people.
Awesome. So I do want to put you on the spot here and maybe stir the pot a little bit. Who currently on the independent scene is really asking for a stunner mid-match right now?
Oh, boy. Shane Saber. Without a question, Shane Saber. That guy tries to talk to me and make me laugh all the time in the ring, so I'm going to say him. Or Stratos. Stratosphere is another guy who I have a hard time keeping a straight face in the ring with, and we just have so many inside jokes with each other that, I'll slide in and make one to him, and then I'll back him out of the corner when he's cheating, and he'll whisper one to me, and I'll have to bite my lip not to laugh. So one of those two guys for sure.
There you have it. It's not dastardly tactics. It's not treating fans poorly. It's if you try to break Brad in the ring, you're going to be looking at a stunner.
That's right.
Before we sign out, can I just get you to let people know once again who you are, maybe where they can follow you on social media if they want to see where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Brad Myers. I've been a referee in Ontario for about 10 years. If you want to follow me on socials and hear my terrible takes about the Maple Leafs and the Blue Jays, it's at Brad Myers Refs across all social medias. If you have any interest in becoming a pro wrestling referee, check out New Wave Academy. Come to my class, and I will train you to the best of my ability, and I will always give you feedback.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate coming on here. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Please help out the show if you can with a like, subscription, or review. We'll see you next time.
This program is a proud part of the Swear to Pod Network.